It is Madden and Benz, Unfiltered with Mark Madden and me, Tim Benz. Trib Live, Facebook live stream, YouTube Trib Sports. Thanks for watching us. Brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar. On the North Shore, meet me at Mike's. Hockey getting back to the NHL ice surface coming up this week, so you can watch all hockey games at Mike's across the street from PNC Park at the base of the Clemente Bridge. 80 rotating taps, 500 available craft beers. Get yourself a steak and a stone and meet me at Mike's. Mark, let's start right there. Team USA claims gold over Canada. What'd you think about the game, how it played out, and how it ended?
Well, I knew it was a crazy game when I saw Austin Matthews back-checking. It was like a UFO landed on my front porch. And now Jack Hughes, who's America's new sweetheart and superstar after getting the overtime goal. All that was impossible as a New Jersey Devil, Tim. It's a boring team in a boring area. But now, because he put on that USA jersey and scored one goal, everybody's going to be talking about him for a long time. Quinn Hughes could have been the tournament MVP, but now he's the other Hughes brother. Just some weird storylines coming out of there, but very entertaining ones as well. And honestly, Connor Hellebuck should have been the tournament MVP. Connor McDavid was, which does not serve him well. After that Conn Smythe, when Edmonton lost in the final a couple of years ago, he's now the MVP of the losers. But I think more than anything else that winning the gold medal vindicated Billy Guerin and Mike Sullivan. Guerin, because a lot of people, including me, disagreed with his roster assembly, and Sullivan, because frankly, he hasn't gotten results since 2018, not having won a playoff series since then, and more currently, presiding over the New York Rangers' absolute collapse this season. Referring to Guerin's roster, I thought they should have included, more of the high-octane guys like Robertson and Caulfield and Hudson, but two guys from Pittsburgh, Vince Trocheck and JT Miller, who were included as role players, played their roles to the hilt. The USA was a perfect 18 for 18 on the penalty kill, which involved Vince and JT, and killed off that 5-on-3 against Canada yesterday, which also included Vince and JT. So I think the biggest story was that a team that was perceived to have made mistakes in the assembly won anyway, which of course makes every one of those decisions correct.
You talked about back-checking. One guy who didn't back-check was Cale Makar, getting back on the goal that eventually Jack Hughes scored. He had the puck tipped away from him, and then he kind of glided back into the defensive zone. He was en route to being one of the Canadian heroes for this one, and who knows, if he scores in overtime, maybe it's him that's named the MVP instead of McDavid.
Well, no, they voted for that after one period.
Well, that's true, but then again,
ludicrous, but yeah.
You're right. So you're right. That, which is dumb. I don't know why they would bother doing that. That's like voting for the Super Bowl MVP after the first quarter. I have no idea.
Who should pick the MVP? They should have three people at the end of the game that pick it real quick because they'd get it right.
You know what else? Maybe that MVP could get a bigger stuffed animal. What was the deal with the stuffed animals being passed out?
You know what I thought was great? When Jake Gensel got his stuffed animal, it looked like a stuffed animal being handed a stuffed animal.
The best meme going around was, they replaced the stuffed animal with a rat and handed it to Brad Marchand. I love that one.
Yeah, I mean, that last goal was a microcosm of where Canada's star power failed. Because McKinnon got muscled off the puck by Werenski after, McKinnon missed an empty net earlier in the game. Like you said, Makar glided back after the turnover. And McDavid got back, but not to the right spot. He went just to a space instead of looking for a man. You got a man up playing 3-on-3, and Jack Hughes found a soft spot behind McDavid.
And there were a lot of turnovers where guys were doing that, throwing it to a space. This time it worked out for Team USA, but in part that's because it's 3-on-3, not 5-on-5. There were a lot of defensive zone turnovers that turned into quick offense because guys were passing one step ahead, as you might see, with that much skill on the ice, but it led to some very dangerous situations for both goaltenders.
Well, yeah, and as I wrote in my column with the Trib, there was a lot of stuff that was on a knife's edge that could have decided the game either way, not least Sidney Crosby. Had he played at 100%, heck, had he played at even 70% and got out there for that 5-on-3 power play, which, by the way, is the exact situation you might have dressed him hurt specifically for. But Dreamer Tatum in a novel called Semi-Tough, Dan Jenkins' very acclaimed football novel. He said the only truism in sports, Tim, you know what it is? What could have happened did.
Yeah, and maybe John Cooper should read that book then.
Well, he needs to fall back like his hairline.
That was really ridiculous for him to kind of foist some of the blame for the result onto the existence of 3-on-3 where
Well, yeah, but I knew whoever lost would do that. Let's not kid ourselves, Tim. If the U.S. had lost, they would have done the same thing.
I know that 3-on-3 is having its moment right now. Everybody is really fond of 3-on-3 because of how the goals were scored. But, Sid's golden goal was 4-on-4. Everybody still talks about that. The other two big moments that everybody talks about, moments in the Olympics post-1980, were Forsberg in the shootout and TJ Oshie in Sochi against the Russians. So, you had a 4-on-4 moment and two shootouts. So, people remember how the games end. They don't remember the format that allowed those games to end.
Well, Tim, I really regret the Oshie thing because it gave him the entree to become an insufferable ass on TV over a decade later.
And they didn't even win a medal in that situation either.
Yeah, and Russia wasn't there these Olympics either. That needs to be said.
Yeah, I think that if Russia's there, it might have tilted the difference, but I still do think, even if Russia was there, Mark, I thought going in that Canada and the U.S. were the best teams.
Oh, I think if Russia's there, the final is still U.S.-Canada, but we don't know.
What about now that Sidney Crosby comes back with the Penguins? Any word that you're getting on how long he's going to be out, and how do the Penguins work around that?
The only thing I don't know, that I do know rather, is that he doesn't need surgery. Unless I've been gratuitously lied to, when I don't think I have been. I would rest him for a couple of weeks, wouldn't you?
For sure. I mean, even if he really was being talked about coming back to play in the semifinal or the final, to me, there's a massive difference between my head is telling me I can get through 120 minutes of hockey over the next 2 days as opposed to, what did you point out, 17 and 31 to close out the season. That's a big difference.
Yeah, and, I really respect that Sid didn't put himself in the lineup, at whatever percent he was, to give whoever. But, I'd have put myself in because Sid at 70% is more likely to contribute than Sam Bennett at 100. Sam Bennett at 150. I don't know. But, I'm getting a lot of stick. And I'll admit, I'm not wallowing in the U.S. win because I did want Sid to win. And had he played, I would have unabashedly wanted him to win because I believe you can be loyal to something besides country. I got no regrets, but I wish he would have played.
It certainly would have made the dynamic more interesting here in Pittsburgh. Maybe it would have in Canada as well.
It's going to be weird. Like Hellebuck now goes back to Winnipeg, and they hate what happened.
Brady Tkachuk, goes back at Austin Matthews. Yeah, all those guys.
What happened. And Jack Hughes, he's coming to Pittsburgh Thursday. I assume he'll still be plastered. I hope he brings, how about Tate McRae, his Canadian pop star turncoat trader girlfriend, which you know what they're talking about her up there. And I wrote my column, well, why would she want to come to Pittsburgh? But then again, why would she want to go to Newark?
Mark, you call her a turncoat. She's never worn a coat in her life.
Yeah, she's hot though, boy. Wow.
Yeah. The less she wears, I think as she goes along in her career, it seems to be more and more obvious, but no one's complaining.
I'm finally at the point where I feel creepy even talking about somebody that age.
Yeah, I don't know if she'll make an appearance at PPG Paints Arena, but Hughes is going to get a standing ovation just like Ryan Miller did when Ryan Miller came back here.
No question. How about who was it? Dylan Larkin was carrying Micah Ruzioni on his shoulders around the Olympic Village.
I saw that, yeah.
That was weird.
That was funny, though, and I get that NBC played up the whole connection with Kurt Russell reading the Open and kind of doing the
had nothing to do with it.
Little tip of the cap to the Miracle on Ice team because it was the 46th anniversary, but that's all that was. It was a historical calendar footnote. This wasn't USA versus Russia. This was Ali versus Frazier. This was Lakers Celtics. This was Yankees Red Sox.
That's right. There was no underdog here.
All right, so what do the Penguins do if Sid is out for a while then, Mark, especially as the trade deadline is fast approaching? Do they allow?
Yeah, the trade deadline stuff, I don't get the conversation. They're not going to do very much in terms of getting and probably nothing at all in terms of dumping.
They could, because they have the space to add and they have the assets to add. I mean, I guess
but Tim, we forget they've been losing money at a steady clip for quite some time. Whether new ownership ignores that, I don't know. But I just don't see the need to go out and get. They're not a team that can win a Stanley Cup. Okay, they could add if they got Jason Robertson right now for nothing, they're still not going to win a Stanley Cup.
But they could keep him for a couple years hereafter.
Right. But they're not going to. But the point is, this is not a team that needs to sacrifice any future. It needs to continue on the path of its process.
We were speaking extemporaneously on the podcast about how to shuffle things around if Sid's out for a bit. And I floated the idea of putting Kindle between Raquel and Rust, keep Gino with Chinikov. It sounded like during the podcast you warmed up to that idea. Is that still what you would do?
Yes, that is what I would do. I only because I don't want to sabotage Chinikov, who right now arguably is the hottest shooter.
Yeah, let's see if the Olympics slowed him down at all. But he was playing great going in, and I think
I'd love to see Kindle after some much needed rest during the break. Get between them two guys. The combination of the rest and a bit of a job promotion could really accelerate him coming back too.
How do you think Carlson's going to look now that the Olympics are over? Is that a concern?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we'll know right away, I think.
That's for sure. Well, actually, and didn't he take an extra day coming back too?
I think he stopped to shoot craps in Vegas. Like remember a couple of years ago? I expect Carl will probably have a bit of a down surge initially, but I think he'll keep playing good. But yeah, you wonder because maybe preparation for the Olympics is why he played so good up till now.
Mark, before we get to a cursory mention of Steelers talk here, one thing we didn't discuss when we had our podcast was the passing of Bill Mazeroski, which, that hit home to me. I really liked Maz. I interviewed Maz more than a handful of times during my time in Pittsburgh. He was one of the first big interviews I had, I thought, on our show when I was on after you over at 1250 early on in my career. I'm really upset to hear about the news. As much of an icon as Pittsburgh sports has ever had, what about your dealings with Maz, and how did you take that?
Well, we had Maz on the show a number of times, and it's a very sad day for me. And I knew that Maz was probably in trouble. Well, he's an older gentleman. He was 89. He led a full life. And the last few years, we were unable to get him on because, he just didn't come on. And that's when somebody who's come on previously stops and he doesn't hate you for something you said, it's just, not probably health related. Like Dave Parker. We got Dave Parker on the show. Dave had problems with Parkinson's, obviously, down the stretch. But we called him up and we told his wife, listen, just call when he's having a good day, which he sometimes did, right?
Yeah.
So he called, we put him right on, and that was a very memorable last appearance by the Cobra, who I also liked very much. But Maz really hits home with me because he was my favorite Pirate as a kid. And I wrote him a fan letter, the first time I ever wrote a fan letter as a kid, and he sent me back an autographed postcard, which I still have and will always treasure. And I saw Maz play enough, and I saw Maz kind of near the end of his prime. But boy, you had to see the guy turn a double play. He's the best defensive second baseman ever. He'll always be remembered for the home run in 60, which is the greatest home run in baseball history, whether or not anyone wants to acknowledge. And it's the greatest moment in Pittsburgh sports history by far, whether or not anybody else wants to acknowledge. But to see him turn a double play, it's like the ball bounced off his chest to the first baseman. He got rid of it so quick. It was superhuman. You couldn't believe what you were seeing. As a kid, too, something like that happened so quick, it was like a magic trick. You just marveled at it. And it was wonderful.
Neil Walker.
And Maz was wonderful.
I don't know if you saw the quotes from Neil that I had, Mark, how Maz instructed him to turn double plays when he made the move from catcher to third to second, and was kind of his instructor when he was still in his, what was he, like early 70s, I think Neil said at that point. And he was still magical with his footwork around the bag and how to catch the ball on the feed. And Maz told him, you don't use the glove to catch it, use the palm of your glove to stop it. And then you just grab it and throw it to first base.
Did you ever see Maz's glove?
He had a really worn glove, didn't he? And it was kind
of like an oven mitt.
Yeah, it was open.
It had no padding. He wanted to feel the ball. And like stuff like that. The reason Maz was good at it, a lot of second basemen, baseball players in general at any position, they don't bother to turn the little things into a science like Maz did. And by turning two into a science, he made a little thing into a huge thing. He was the best ever at it. How many people can say they were the best ever at something and they hit a walk-off home run to win a World Series? And also, Tim, after the Miracle on Ice and after the Jets over the Colts, the biggest upset in sports history.
Before we get some comments here, Mark, what about the Steelers' situation at quarterback with Rodgers? Are you starting to believe some of the reports that came out last week that this may indeed last a couple months, as Jeremy Fowler pontificated, or as we heard from Aditi Kinkhabwala, that actually nobody she's talked to says that Rodgers is coming back, which is counter to everything that I had heard previous to that, which is it was just a fait accompli and he'll come back when he wants to come back.
I think the best way to put it is I'm starting to care less, and I didn't care at all in the first place. The Steelers are beyond boring. They are so incredibly freaking boring in everything they do. Yeah, let's fret over whether we bring back Grandpa Game Manager. I mean, they're despicable. The quote, was that Sylvester?
Sylvester the cat, yeah.
Right, despicable.
What about Hayden and Harrison saying Patrick Queen should go? I think that actually, as opposed to some of the way James Harrison delivers some of his takes, that was actually reasonable down the middle. It made some sense talking about him potentially being a cap casualty. Now, look, they have the cap space to keep him. If they were to get rid of him, I still want to see what they try to do to address this black hole that has been inside linebacker. They should be doing better for what they're paying for him, but they could probably do worse. And you know how I know that? Because they've done worse.
Well, whenever I think of cap management, anything mathematical, I think of James Harrison and Joe Hayden.
Yeah, but, his cap hit is, I think it's 17.1.
Oh, he sucks. I'm not disputing that. But like you said, they'll probably get worse. They might get cheaper, but they'll get a lesser player. I mean, who are they going to get?
I mean, I don't know that Peyton Wilson, more time for him exclusively is the answer. I mean, I think people want to will Peyton Wilson into being better than what he is.
You know what happened with Peyton Wilson? Peyton Wilson ran his mouth so much about how good he was that people believed it. And he's not very good. He's average.
And I think people are starting to see that he's good, not great, just like Patrick Queen is. It's only that Peyton Wilson's doing it at a much cheaper rate. So if you save money on Patrick Queen, great. What are you going to do with it, though? Because you got the cap space. You're still not paying a quarterback. And if you pay Rodgers, it's still not going to be very much.
Well, Tim, the root of me not caring about all this, beside, like I said before, the boredom, okay, the same old blah, 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 and it don't get no better, is A, not trusting them at all to make the right move. I did a column last week, and I listed 6 cataclysmic errors they've made since 2019. Not little errors that shook the foundation of the franchise, that affected the roster composition negatively for years to come, like drafting Kenny Pickett, like giving TJ Watt a deal they didn't have to, like giving DK Metcalf a deal they should not have. So why would I trust them to do the right thing? Why would I think they have a clue?
Right now, I don't know why anybody would trust them, especially when it comes to the quarterback position, unless you define trust being paid off by going 10-8 every year, which I guess some people tend to define it that way. One other thing, Mark, real fast here. The tush push, it sounds like, according to Rich McKay, the head of the committee, he said, the competition committee, he said the tush push, there's nobody that's advanced anything to ban it this year. Last year was all anybody was bitching about. Now no one has advanced anything to even ban it. I guess it was one of those situations, if you can't beat them, join them, and everybody did, and everybody's got some version of the play, and now they all like it, and no one's trying to get it off the books. Go figure.
Does football have a labor dispute potentially coming up soon?
I don't know when their CBA is up now. I don't think so.
Because I could go for a year or two without football. But that would require a union with balls, which they don't have. So, yeah, I mean, I just hate football. I'm bored to death by it.
You'll probably see a year without baseball.
It's samey, it's repetitive, it's boring.
You might go a year without baseball. You all right with that?
Tim, I'd be all right with a year without everything.
All right, let's get to some comments here. We'll start off with this guy at the top who says, like Mark used to say about Ben for Sidney Crosby, no Sid, no chance.
Well, that's this little bit simplistic. Canada probably, I'm not saying they deserve to win because, again, what could have happened did, but they outplayed them by some margin, not as gratuitous as a Nathan McKinnon or whoever would have you believe. By the way, you saw people now are posting the whole context of that quote with McKinnon, right?
Yeah.
And saying it wasn't that bad. He said the better team lost. Buried in the context, he said the better team lost.
This guy adds, McDavid isn't a big game player. When the stakes are at their highest, McDavid comes up small unless you count the Four Nations.
Well, I mean, I do count the Four Nations. I mean, he's not done as well in big situations as he should, but he did that.
John says, fantastic Olympics for the U.S. I mean, you're talking about hockey, obviously, for both of the hockey teams. Actually, they medaled, I think they got, was it more golds or more medals ever as a country in the Olympic Games?
Yeah, they had a ton of medals for sure. But now, they're trying to ruin it. Like the FBI directors in the locker room, people are going nuts about that. Trump calls them. Every president in history has called a team that's won in anything, not least the Olympics, where they're representing the country. How can you get mad about that?
Well, like you're talking about the Huffington Post article, too, that was shaming everybody for chanting USA, USA.
Yeah, I don't like the flag waving in the name of sport. I don't like that crossover. But it's going to happen. I don't have a problem with it. And I don't think people should be begrudged doing it if that's their thing. Why can't we just let people do their thing?
John also adds a baseball one here. O'Neill Cruz is pivotal for the Buccos season. Do either of you think he will figure it out this season, or will he be the same old inconsistent Cruz? I don't think he's going to figure it out in center field. He's going to be learning that position for a long time and may never will. And eventually you're just going to have to get potentially to understand that he is what he is. Maybe he is already, and because of his ungodly talent, we keep waiting for it to manifest, but you got to make contact with the ball occasionally too.
Well, Parada, who I think is the best baseball guy around in Pittsburgh, Parada said that if Cruz doesn't have a breakout there this year, he's not gonna. That like he's kind of that's his informal thin red line where if he doesn't do it now, he's just not gonna. And I tend to agree. In fact, I tend to think he's probably crossed that line already and just isn't gonna. I think he's like a 20 home run, bunch of steals, too many strikeouts, hit 210 type of guy.
When Canada kept missing golden chances by McDavid, this comes from Garrett. When Canada kept missing chances by McDavid, Celebrini, McKinnon, you could feel it was only a matter of time. The best team doesn't always win. New York Islanders 4-3 overtime against the Penguins.
Yeah, I never felt it was a matter of time. I mean, I don't think that game had any connotation to it besides exactly what happened. I think a lot of games don't speak for themselves. I think that game left nothing to hide. It was all in plain sight.
This guy named Mark says all of the Penguins' major moves have to come in the offseason. I don't think they have to. Like I said, they've got the cap space to play with.
Yeah, but Tim, you keep coming back to that. They're just not going anywhere this year. I mean, what do you think their ceiling is if they go out and add somebody?
At most, a first-round playoff win. But again, I'm not just talking about this season if it's a guy of Robertson's capability. If it's a keepable guy beyond this year, go get him.
It's tough to make a deal like that at the deadline, and Dallas just isn't going to trade Robertson given their status as a legit contender.
Well, if it's nobody besides him, then yeah, I think there's a tough fit that's worthy of going out and getting that's truly going to help him, especially if Sid is out for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle has got the team to where it is and where it's going, making a series of great little moves. That's what I think is going to continue. I think the big move comes at the very end of all this, and we're not near the very end of all this.
Here's one that talks Steelers and Penguins. We'll start with Penguins first. What percentage chance do you give the Pens of making the playoffs, considering the hard schedule and Sid likely missing some time? I'm going to say it's more than 5.
Yeah, I think how they deal with their cushion while Sid is out will probably lock down a playoff spot. I think if they maintain, what are they, like, they're 5 or 6 points clear right now?
Yeah, that's, well, 5 or, I got to look it up. I think it's 5 or 6 points clear of third And then I don't know where they are exactly versus the wild cards. Let me
Well,
look.
all the wild card doesn't matter. They got to finish third. So I think if they're still,
They got
5,
70 points, Mark, and Boston is 69 as the bottom wild card, and the Islanders have 69 as the third team in the Metro.
Yeah, but who's the fourth place team in the Metro?
The fourth place team in the Metro is Washington with 65.
So they're 5 points clear, safe in the playoff spot right now. If they can maintain that while Sid's out, they're going to be good.
He adds, Steelers-wise, there's no need to talk about the Steelers quarterback. They're 100-1 to win the Super Bowl. Might as well let you be the quarterback. Would you like to be the quarterback of the Steelers, Mark?
No.
Richard
although,
says,
although I wouldn't be that much less mobile.
Richard says, I want to see Rodgers wait as long as possible, then retire or head to Minnesota.
Hold on, Tim. Let me interrupt. Get rid of this guy. I'm tired of him, too. Here we are. They just won the freaking Olympic gold medal, and we're talking about Rodgers.
Let me see if I can find some more Olympics ones. Here's another Penguins one since they're coming
Seriously,
back.
we just had one of the greatest hockey games of all time. And we're talking about some old, washed-up grandpa game manager who was crap last year will be worse this year. And that's all we're talking about.
RJ says, who does Avery Hayes take the place of in the lineup?
Well, Sid initially, I would think they'll, once they shuffle things around. After that, I don't know. I think they're bringing him up here to reward the way he's played, with the 2 hat tricks in Wilkes and the 2 goals in Buffalo before the Olympic break in Avery's NHL debut. I got to be honest, I would stick him in place of Achari. I think even though that fourth line has become this star fourth line, which, by the way, is a slippery slope on a lot of levels, I think Hayes has more potential for energy down the stretch. That's just me. They won't do that. Veteran respect.
Eric says at the top here, thoughts on McDavid winning MVP. I sure thought Hellebuck deserved it. We did talk about that at the outset. I would go with Hellebuck as well. I thought you made a pretty good point too, Mark, when you're talking about the Hughes guys, because Jack Hughes is all we're talking about now. However, going into this final game, I thought Quinn Hughes was kind of the breakout guy for Team USA. Everybody was buzzing about him, and rightfully so.
If Jack hadn't scored the overtime winner, he'd be the other Hughes brother.
That's true.
And
yes,
now Quinn's
exactly.
the other Hughes brother. You know what's going to be the I hate to say this because I'm so high on the Hughes kids right now, but they're going to, you watch, it won't be long before they demand to all be on the same team.
Yeah, the Stalls never quite got there, did they? They only did 2 at a time.
Care that much.
I think they only did 2 at a time, right?
Gordo went to Carolina because it was the best deal, not because of E.
No, I'm saying they never got and actually did.
No, Mark never got on. They were never all 3 on the same team. No, that's correct.
Right. No, I was trying to think if Eric ever wound up or Jared ever wound up with.
I always got the impression with Gordo that, he would have liked to have been on it. He liked playing with E. You know what I mean? But I think, and I'm putting words in his mouth here, but I could read his demeanor pretty well. I think he thought that fretting about that would have been kind of stupid, childish.
I did like the meme that was going around. I can't remember who advanced it first, but words to the effect of the Kachuk brothers are the kids next door who use your pool without asking when you're on vacation. And the Hughes brothers are the kids that come over while you're on vacation and mow your lawn without asking.
Yeah, but you know what, Tim? They might do that. I think they might take a couple beers out of your garage fridge.
Share them with Tate McRae on top of everything else.
Yeah, in a way, it's a shame Jack has her as a girlfriend because all those guys in that team, they could need swimming lessons, if you know what I mean.
All right. That'll do it for us. Mark is on at 2:00 today. Be listening. We'll be back next week for Madden and Benz Unfiltered for the first time in March. Plenty to talk about with the Pens. We come back. It'll be our last episode, I think, before
Can't you just see Jack Hughes last night, the Olympic Village, talking to some Czech speed skater saying, Tate McRae, I barely know her. That was just a photo op, baby.
This is Madden and Benz Unfiltered. He couldn't have formed a sentence that long.